Welcome back, time travelers! I can't wait to tell you the big news. Remember those chocolate chip cookies that I was making for my book club? And how I had this wild idea to throw some cayenne pepper into the batter, even though it wasn't in the recipe? Well, I am so glad that I listened to my intuition because those cookies were amazing. I mean, my friends weren't so sure at first, but now everyone in the book club wants my recipe. I mean, think about it. If I had stuck to the way it had always been done, I never would have discovered something new and amazing. This just might be a whole new cookie craze. But enough about me. We're actually here to talk about transcendentalism. And today it's my job to introduce you to a great American poet, essayist, journalist, and yes, transcendentalist named Walt Whitman. In today's video, we'll learn a little bit about the life and times of Walt Whitman. We'll talk about the revolutionary style of poetry he wrote, and we'll review the agenda for this lesson. I think you're going to be amazed by how Walt Whitman followed his creative intuition even when it wasn't popular and introduced an innovative style of poetry. Have you ever heard the quote, "Keep your face always to the sunshine and the shadows will fall behind you"? I like that. It's very positive, right? Well, those words were penned by Walt Whitman. Whitman also said, "Happiness, not in another place, but this place. Not for another hour, but this hour." It's a very different tone from dark romantics and the Gothic literature crowd, right? So just who was this Mr. Sunshine? Walt Whitman was born in 1819 in New York and attended public school in Brooklyn until he was 11. That's when he left school to help out with the family finances. He worked various jobs, and by age 12, he was learning the printing business. Like his parents before him, his formal schooling was limited, but even after he left school, Whitman continued reading the classics and writing original works. During the 1840s, Whitman worked as a journalist at several different newspapers. But by the 1850s, his career in journalism waned. He started dabbling in real estate while also writing poems. Then, in 1855, Whitman put 12 poems together and created a book he titled Leaves of Grass. He didn't have success finding anyone who wanted to publish it, so he used his own money and published the book himself. Whitman had never met Ralph Waldo Emerson, but he looked up to Emerson and found him to be inspiring. He especially liked Emerson's 1844 essay, The Poet. So Whitman mailed a copy of Leaves of Grass to Emerson. Emerson wrote a letter to Whitman to let him know that he loved the work. He felt that Whitman had created a style of poetry that was uniquely American. Remember how Emerson talked about being innovative and not conforming to the way things have always been done? Well, that's exactly what Whitman had achieved with his poetry. Unfortunately, there were a lot of critics who didn't love the book the way Emerson did. Some of them thought that Whitman talked too openly about sensuality, and some thought his language was too common and his poetry lacked structure. It didn't really attract much of a public audience either. But Whitman kept plugging away at Leaves of Grass. He edited it, added to it, and republished it several times. His first self-published edition contained 12 poems. The final version of Leaves of Grass, published in 1892, contains nearly 400 poems. Whitman's growing catalog of poems continue to reflect his lived experience and transcendental philosophy. For example, during the Civil War, Whitman worked for the Department of the Interior in Washington, D.C. In his spare time, he regularly visited wounded soldiers in area hospitals, trying to bring cheer by offering words of encouragement and small gifts. Whitman was deeply affected by the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln in 1865, and he wrote 4 different poems to eulogize Lincoln. You will read 2 of them this week. When Whitman died in 1892, The same year that his final edition of Leaves of Grass came out, he had no idea how famous he would become. The poetry that achieved only moderate success during his lifetime went on to influence generations. What was it about Walt Whitman's poetry that made it so fresh and innovative and influential? Well, mainly, it's the fact that he wrote most of his poems in free verse. The poems we've studied so far were in a traditional format, with consistent patterns of rhythm and rhyme. Remember Longfellow's Christmas Bells poem? I heard the bells on Christmas Day their old familiar carols play. Da-da, 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 da-da. Consistent rhythm, rhyme at the ends of lines, classic. That's the way poetry was written for centuries, but Whitman did something innovative. He didn't adhere to a consistent rhythm, and he didn't adhere to a consistent rhyme scheme. Most of the time, he didn't use any rhyme at all. Instead, he wrote in a natural style that sounded more like speaking. Just listen. Long enough have you dreamed contemptible dreams. Now I wash the gum from your eyes. You must habit yourself to the dazzle of the light and of every moment of your life. No consistent rhythm or rhyme scheme, just naturally flowing lines of poetry. Whitman phrased words in the ways he wanted to, and he was able to choose the precise words he wanted without having to worry about how many syllables there were or which ones were stressed or unstressed. That's the beauty of free verse. Whitman didn't invent free verse style, but he was the first poet to really embrace it and make it his own. Some people didn't like it. After all, it's not what they were used to. But some people really liked it. Emerson felt like Whitman had created a uniquely American style of poetry, remember? And for people who were not part of the highly educated crowd, free verse poetry was much more accessible. It sounded more natural and it used more common language. During Whitman's time, free verse was not all that popular, but over time, this is the type of poetry we've become accustomed to. 20th century poets like T.S. Eliot and Langston Hughes were lauded for their free verse. And today, free verse is the norm rather than the exception. Maybe Walt Whitman was just ahead of his time. All right, you're going to read several of Whitman's poems this week, and you're going to learn a little bit about the historical context in which he wrote. So let's go ahead and take a look at your lesson agenda. As usual, you'll have PDF readings and activities each day, followed by some online practice to review what you've learned, and of course, your online assessment at the end of the lesson. On day 5, your PDF will present you with some reflection questions, refresh your writing practice, and a writing activity called dueling poems. For this writing activity, you'll create 2 original poems. They should be about the same topic, but one poem should be written in a traditional style with consistent meter and rhyme scheme, and the other poem should be written in free verse. As you work to create these poems, think about which style you like best. Are you more of a traditionalist as a poet, or do you feel more expressive when writing in free verse? You know, all of this talk about being creative and freeing yourself from the traditional ways of doing things has made me think that cayenne pepper in cookies is just the beginning for me. I'm ready to follow my intuition and explore bold new ideas. I mean, just think, what would it be like to put pepperoni in an omelet? Not your traditional omelet, but sounds pretty good, right? Or, I know, how about hot sauce in ice cream? I need to write these ideas down. Oh, what about like a chocolate sauce on pasta? Or,